Hello, in this video we're gonna sync the animation of our clients with each other and also sync the equipments of the clients that were connected before the current client. So to do that, let's go to the session manager. Here it is. So in order to keep track of the characters, I am going to create a dictionary of type ulong and character. Let's also add another event in the start server. I'm gonna use on a client disconnect. So let's create the function for it. Name it on client disconnect. This is going to pass a client ID. And whenever this happens, we're just gonna remove that client ID from our character dictionary. Now let's go to the function. We are instantiating the character. So here in the spawn character server RPC, after we instantiate the character and we are going to spawn it, then we are going to add it to our characters dictionary by passing the client ID and the character that we instantiated. And let's take a look right over here. At the end, I'm gonna loop through my characters, and if my character is not null and it's not equal to the same character that we just instantiated, then we're gonna sync the items with that character. But before we do that, let's go to the character script. Here we are calling initialize server and initialize client RPC. I'm going to add an additional parameter to these functions. So let's start by initialize server. I'm going to go to the character script, initialize server, and here I am going to add another list of strings right over here. Name it equipped IDs. And I'm going to do the same thing for the private initialized function right over here. So this is the additional parameter. So if I go back to the initialize server, I'm going to pass this equipped IDs. And for the initialize client RPC, obviously we need to pass a string. So I'm going to pass the string called equipped JSON. And here I'm going to use the JSON mapper to turn that string into a list of strings and pass it to this function. So now let's create a struct of data right over here. I'm gonna name it data. So it is going to be system serializable public struct data, and it contains a dictionary of string and integer called items and two lists of strings. One of them is item ID and the other one is equipped IDs. And I'm going to create a function to get the data of this character. First, I'm gonna define a new data and initialize the dictionary and the lists. And at the end, I'm going to return the data. So let's do a for loop on our items. And if it is null, we're gonna continue. Then I am going to define an integer called value. If our item I is a weapon, then value is going to be the ammo inside the weapon. If it is an ammo, the value is going to be the amount inside that ammo. Now we can add the item ID to the items plus its value. And also we are going to add the network ID of that item. And at the end, if our current weapon is not null and our item is equals to current weapon, then we're gonna add that current weapon network ID to the equipped ID. The same thing for the ammo. Now if we go to the session manager, here when we are looping through our characters, we can get the data of that character and then turn it to a JSON and then create a client RPC and assign the client ID to the only target of this message. And then we're going to call the initialize client RPC by passing the JSON client key, which is going to be the ID of that client, and the parameters, which is the target of this message. So we need to create a new function for initialize client RPC. So if we go to the character, we already have one, but we need to create another one with different parameters. So it is going to be initialize client RPC with a string of data JSON, ulong client ID, and parameters. So we're gonna do the same thing with the initialized and client ID. And then we are going to convert the string to data, and then we're gonna call initialize using the data info. And back to the session manager. Here, temporarily, I am going to create a equipped IDs list. It's a list of string, and I'm just gonna leave it empty. So let's convert it to a string using JSON mapper and pass it to our initialized client RPC here as the third parameter, and also pass the list to this function as the third parameter. Now let's go back to the character and take a look at the private initialize. And now we are going to affect this equipped IDs. So before we do that, let's remove this if condition. The second part of it, item data.value does not need to be greater than 0. And here, instead of first weapon index, I am going to change that to equip weapon index and equip ammo index. And let's take a look here. Actually, this I doesn't need to be here. Let's cut it and put it under the items. So here, when the item is weapon, we are going to check if equipped IDs contain this ID, or equipped weapon index is less than 0, then we are going to say equipped weapon index equals to I. And the same thing for the ammo. We are going to say if equip IDs contains this item ID, then we're gonna choose the equipped ammo index. Now let's go and create a function to equip ammo. So to do that, I'm going to do it near the equip weapon. Let's call it equip ammo, and it takes an ammo. So if the ammo is not null, we're going to check if weapon is not null and weapon ammo ID is not equals to ammo ID, then we're gonna just return. Otherwise, we are going to set the private ammo to this ammo. And if the ammo parent is not equals to transform, we are going to set the parent to the transform, position it to 0, and disable it. And here, instead of just assigning the ammo, let's use equip ammo instead inside the equip weapon. So we are going to pass that, and this way we have more control on equipping ammo. So let's go back, and here we say if equip ammo index is greater or equal than 0, we're gonna equip that ammo. And here, if the equip weapon index is greater or equal than 0, we're gonna equip that weapon. Okay, now let's go to the third person controller. Here we have a function called grounded check. So I'm just gonna cut this function and bring it inside the character script. So let's go and paste it somewhere, let's say here. And this grounded check requires a bunch of variables. So let's go ahead and grab those variables. The first one is grounded offset, grounded layers, grounded radius. So for the grounded, I'm just gonna use the grounded I have here. So let's go back to the third person controller, and this is the grounded offset, grounded radius, and layer. So I'm gonna grab them, here we go, and bring them to the character. Let's paste it right over here. And do we use this local player? Let's actually remove that because we no longer need that. Let's take a look. Instead of checking is local player, I am going to check is owner. Now let's go back to the ground check function. Here, instead of doing this, I'm just gonna name this grounded, and I'm going to pass the grounded, and we don't need to check to see if it has animator or not. This is the grounded that we have inside our animator. So let's go back and let's call this function inside the update. Here it is, our update. So let's call it right here. Now for the third person controller, we have a grounded here. Let's see the references. So we could just delete that. Nobody's using it. And here in the errors, well, this is for undraw gizmos, so doesn't matter. I'm just gonna comment this entirely, so we don't need that function. Now in the jump and gravity, I'm going to use character dot is grounded, and we have an error up here, so we can just remove that. Now also we need to move some parts of this jump and gravity to the character. So let's go to the function. This is jump and gravity. So I'm gonna take a copy of this. Okay. And let's paste it inside character right here. Now I only need the parts for the free fall, and I don't need the parts for the jump. So here is gonna check for an animator and sets the boolean for jump and free fall to false. I'm just gonna directly write the text. So free fall and jump, put it to false. And this velocity stuff we don't need, that's for the jump. Let's remove that part. Also, this is for jump, I think. So I'm also going to remove that. This is for jump, and that is for jump as well. And here it is setting the free fall to true. So let's just do it like this. Now all we need to do, bring the fall timeout delta and fall timeout. Also let's change this to grounded. So to bring those variables, let's go to the definition. This is the fall timeout. So cut that, bring it, let's just do it here. And also fall timeout. So let's go up there. That is the fall timeout, cut, bring to the character. So let's do it here. And that's it. Now we don't have any errors. Yep, this is looking good. So that's it for the jump and gravity. Let's actually name it free fall. And let's call the free fall in the update function. Let's take a look at the update. Here it is, and I'm gonna do it right over there under the ground check. So back to the third person controller, we have some errors. So here it is going to assign the fall timeout. I'm just going to cut that and bring it to the character, and let's put it in a start or awake, doesn't matter. I'm just gonna put it on the awake function. Back to the third person. Let's take a look at the next error. We can just get rid of that. And this part too, we don't need to set the animator here. And let's go further down here. Also, we don't set the animator. And right over here, we don't need these values as well. Let's go back to the character, create a function here, name it jump. So we're gonna call this from third person controller. I'm going to call it right over here when we are hitting the input jump. So character.jump. Now back to the character. First thing we do, we're gonna set the jump boolean to true. And now I'm gonna also call a server RPC, and also I'm going to create a server RPC, name it jump server RPC, and call this from our jump, and also create a client RPC for jump. And if it's not the owner, we're gonna set it to true and call it from server RPC. Now let's go up there in the character script and create two variables. The first one is move speed, which has a getter and setter, and the other one is move speed blend. So in the update function, let's actually set the move speed blend right over here. Let's say we're going to lerp the move speed blend towards the move speed, and if it is less than 0.01, we're gonna set it to 0. And inside our character controller and the move function, right over here we have something called animation blend. Let's go to the definition of this variable and just remove it. So I'm gonna do that, and let's go to these errors. First, in the animator, we don't need to set any animator parameters inside the third person controller, so I'm just going to remove this entirely. Let's go up here in the move function. Here, when we are setting the animation blend, I'm actually going to set the character move speed equal to this value right over here. So let's cut that and paste it here. And we can go ahead and remove that. Now we can go to our character, and in the update, we are going to set the float value of speed to move speed blend. And actually, let's go to the animator. Here we have this motion speed, which we don't need. Here in the base layer and the idle walk run blend, I'm just gonna remove that from the multiplier and uncheck the parameter for multiplier, and we can get rid of this motion speed. Now back to the code. I'm going to create a last move speed right over here. That's another float parameter, and let's get down to the update function. I'm going to check to see if I am the owner. So we're gonna write a bunch of logic here, but before we do that, let's go back up there and create a aimed move speed. And now in the update function again, here when we are setting the delta position, we're gonna check for the owner another time. And let me cut this, bring it here inside the isOwner. And here I'm gonna assign the value of the aimed move speed to a new vector 2 multiplied by speed animation multiplier, and I'm going to pass that instead of this value right over here. So now I'm going to create a boolean, call it last aiming, and let's get down here. I'm going to say if we are aiming, do something, and if we are not, do something else. So if the move speed is not equals to last move speed equals to move speed, and before we do that, we're gonna call a function. So I'm gonna create two functions. One of them is on move speed changed server RPC. It's gonna take a float value. So when that happens, we are going to assign the move speed to the value. And then we're going to create on move speed changed client RPC. It's also going to get a float value. So we are going to call that function from our server RPC. And here in the client RPC, if we're not owner, we are going to assign the move speed. So here we are going to call on move speed changed server RPC, and we're going to pass the move speed. I'm going to do exactly the same thing for aiming. So I'm going to create two functions on aiming changed server RPC and on aiming changed client RPC. So we can call that here in the isOwner. Before we check for aiming, we're going to say if aiming is not equals to last aiming, we're going to call on aiming changed. We're going to pass that, and we're going to assign the last aiming. So we also created aimed move speed, so let's do the same thing for that. I am going to create two more functions. Let's do it right here. Name it on aiming move changed server RPC. It's gonna take a vector 2, and on aiming move changed client RPC, so this is calling that, and this is being called from here. So we need to save the last value of aimed move speed. So let's go ahead and create a vector 2 here, last aimed move speed. So back to the condition. If the aimed move speed is not equals to last aimed move speed, we are going to call on aiming move change server RPC. We're going to pass the value and we're going to assign the last value. And let's actually do that for the aim target as well. I don't know, maybe we should create a network variable for this because it's pretty much changing every frame. But let's just do it like this for now. We might change it to network variable later. So I'm going to create the last aim target. So let's go back to the update function and we're going to call it somewhere around here. But before we do that, let's create the RPCs for it. It is going to be on aim target change server RPC, take a vector 3, and on aim target change client RPC. So we are going to call it right here. Now let's go to the third person controller. Let's get a reference check for has animator. Well, actually, let's just get rid of this. We are not gonna use the animator here. So remove that and that. And let's go further down. We are not getting the is grounded from here anymore, so let's remove that as well. Well, we made a lot of changes. Let's go and check to see if the project is still working. Before we get a build, let's go to the prefab characters, select our character, and let's go to the character script. Here on the ground layers, I'm gonna put it on default. So yep, that's it. Let's get a build and I'm going to put it in the build folder that I created. So here we go. Let's start this. And also let's play the editor as well. Now if I choose this as the server and this one as the client, well, let's go, we jump, we have the walking animation right, and the aim is also working, so that's good. For some reason the falling animation doesn't work, so yep, this is it. Yeah, looks good. Let's close this and check out to see why the falling is not working. It's because of the layer. So let's go to the character here in the initialize client RPC. So we are setting the layer of transform only in one of them. So let's also set the layer in this client RPC. So let's copy that and paste it here. And for the server RPC, we are just going to, here in the initialize server, I am just gonna set it to the network player. So let's also go to the third person controller and bring this on land and on photo step. So I'm gonna cut them both and let's drag them in the character script here. So let's just comment those lines of code. We just need the function for now. And back to the third person controller. Let's actually remove the animator. We are no longer using the animator here, so that should be it. Let's save this and go back to the Unity and get another build for our project. Here we go. Now let's play the game and I'm gonna open another one. And let's also start the editor. So use this as the server. Let's bring up this one and use it as a client. Here we go. Yep, our fall animation now works. And that is us aiming. Let's bring another client. Here it is. So that's it. And bring the other one too. Now if I go here, we have both of them. For now, let's open another instance. And if I play this one and go here. It works fine. So we're gonna sync the reloading and shooting and switching weapon and other stuff in the next video. So I'm gonna finish this video right here. If you had any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments or send me a message in the Discord. Also, I'm going to put the source code in the description of the video. Not the entire source code though, just the scripts. And please make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.